Our Panther Spotlight this week takes us to the hardwood. It's hard to believe that we're about a month away from the men's basketball season starting, and joining us is head coach Casey Kaufman, his third season here guiding the Ohio Dominican. Coach, great to be with you, and again, hard to believe that a month from now you're going to be bouncing balls for real in a game. I guess I want to go back first off. Season ends a year ago. You have spring, you have summer. What's off season look like for a college basketball program?
A lot of recruiting. I think we had filled most of our gaps last year after the season was over, but we still need to look for some transfers, and we did that. So that was a big part of our spring. In addition to that, we did a lot of fundraising stuff. We host some things here. Being in Columbus, have some unique opportunities with the Ohio High School State Tournament. So we helped out with that. That continued our fundraising efforts with camps and things that we run in the summer. And then more recruiting for the future classes. Did a lot of that. And then we spent a lot of time as coaches here trying to figure out ways to get better, just like our guys do. So we spent some time going other places, looking at film from our past season. You usually watch every game, take notes, and then at the same time look at some other people, see how they do things, and see if we can find ways to improve.
How much time do you actually spend or see the current players on the team in the off season?
Well, it depends. I think, we have a certain amount of hours in our spring that we can do things with our guys. So we still see our guys quite a bit while classes are still rolling in the spring. Guys will step up and we have informal conversations and hang out with them. And then we do stuff with them on the court as well. Most of that is more skill related, a little bit more individually focused than it is in the season. So it's nice to do that.
Yeah.
When we get to the summer, don't have a ton of time with them, but June we have so many camps that we work. And a lot of our guys that are out of state will come up. They'll live on campus, and so we do get to see quite a bit of them. I think more so than maybe what some other Division II schools would.
You rely on them to do a lot of off-season work on their own, though.
We do. Yep, that's a big part of it. Is just recruiting a type of kid that we think likes to work. We'll put some things in front of them, help them create workout plans. But even a big part of our spring, Todd, is about helping our guys understand how to work out on their own. So much of today, it's about a trainer telling you what to do and. If you want to get better, you got to figure out ways to get better on your own. So spend time with our spring trying to help our guys correct mistakes on their own, feel when they're doing something wrong. So when they're in the gym by themselves, they can self-correct and get better.
So in preparing for this year one, you come in, obviously it's a transition year for you. You're familiar with the conference, maybe not so much familiar with the players. Year two, I know you brought in a handful of transfers because you had some gaps to fill. You redshirted a handful of guys. Now it's year three. It's starting to become more your program. I was trying to search for a word to maybe describe. Can I use settled? Is settled more of a word that you could use this year because it's becoming more your program? You have more of your own guys than transfer guys that are actually on the court for you this year.
I think that's appropriate. I think settled is a good word. We have a few guys that came with us from Malone. Even Caleb Connor is a transfer for us, but he was with us for 2 years. The freshmen that are now sophomores, even the guys that redshirted last year, I think they've done a really good job of instilling who we are with some of the new pieces. And just our day-to-day feels a lot more like a program as opposed to reteaching things for the first time, or I should say teaching things for the initial time. So I would say settled is a good way of describing it. We've told recruits that our first year kind of felt like we had to figure out what was going to stick here with the current group. And we didn't ask anybody to leave, but I think that getting the wrong things out of our locker room was important. I think year two is about getting the right things in. That came from transfers sometimes it came from freshmen. And now year three, it's about turning a corner. So in order to do that, I think you need to be settled with what we have, and we feel like we are.
How would you assess last year for us? Again, I know we talked about it in the middle of the season. I mean, you were flirting with a conference tournament bid, which was a huge stride from just 1 year prior to that. Were you overall happy with the progress of last year?
I think we saw progress. I don't know if I'd say I was happy with it. I think our day-to-day was good. That sounds like a cliche thing to say. But if you were here and you watched practice, you watched the way guys were trying to figure things out, I think you would see improvement, which is something you need to see. Now, we want to be competing for national tournament berths. To say a 10-win season is something we're happy with, I think that's a hard thing for me to go along with. But at the same time, we saw a lot of progress. We were down at Highland this past week, where I'm from, for practice.
Right.
And one of my former coaches, who I consider a mentor, was watching us practice, and he's watched us practice there for years. We bring our team down. He felt like your guys are just so much more genuinely bought in. He said, I feel like last year when I watched them practice, they're really trying to figure it out. Now they know what it's supposed to look like. And so much of what you're trying to communicate in terms of buy-in, it's there.
Casey, how important is that trip, taking your kids to where you're from, the Amish country area, Berlin, Sugar Creek, that area? How important is it to take that group away from campus? What are you trying to accomplish?
So many benefits, so many off the court benefits. We tell them the Perry Reese story when we go up there. We talk about race and some things that are unique in college basketball with where you pull kids from all over. We tell them that it's more about personality for us and less about anything about where you're from and what you look like. And we can talk about that when we go there because of his story and what he did. We also talk a lot about just off the court, who we want to be, how we want to conduct ourselves. Guys get to hang out and just genuinely grow as a group where it's not necessarily anything we're doing as coaches. They're with each other all the time. And then on the court, we get typically 2 practices in every day. And so I feel like our install and our details, they become so much more refined in that week. And we're getting ready for our first scrimmage this Saturday, and I already feel like we're way further along than we would have been, not just this year without that week, but even last year.
I would encourage people, look up Perry Reese Jr. Sports Illustrated article. It was voted one of the best all-time articles in the history of Sports Illustrated. It's something that I keep handy and I read at least once a year. It's a great piece. We're visiting with men's basketball coach Casey Kaufman. Coach, you had time at Malone as a head coach, now 3 years here. You've had about 2 weeks of official practices, still 30 days before the first game. What do you do in this time frame right now? I know every team is different because whether you're young or you're veterans. What do you do in this period of time leading up to the season, and how maybe has it changed since your first year you were a head coach?
Yeah, I think sometimes ignorance is bliss, and you look back at things you did when you first started coaching, you're like, good grief.
What was I trying to accomplish doing that drill?
I had success. Like, I can't believe we didn't spend more focused time thinking about this situation.
Yeah.
And so right now you're trying to build up everything before your first game. It's not going to be a finished product, but you want to give yourself a chance to win. Those opening games of the season are crossover games, and they're very important. So you're trying to cover. Everybody thinks you have so much time. You talk to high school coaches, and well, we have to cover everything from situational stuff that deals with the shot clock. You have to cover your base offense. You have to cover situational stuff that you install with your sets, your defense, your zone. There's so many things. So we usually start with like an 8-week practice plan of everything we want to cover. We try to sprinkle in 3 to 4 of those things every day. So we're staying true to what we feel like we need to get in before we start our first game. And then you adjust based on what you're seeing in practice to go along with that.
Is there much review of that, what you did in weeks 1 and 2, kind of weeks 7 and 8? Because, you can do things week to week, but, they're kids. They'll forget sometimes.
Correct. And it's your base stuff. It's like, you got to take your vitamins every day. So there's certain things you do offensively and defensively you can't get away from. You're working on new things because a lot of teams play differently. You got to be prepared for everything. But at the same time, you don't want to get away from who you are. So usually the first part of our practice, we're spending time on our base offense and defense.
You've got a core group of players coming back from last year's team. And then you're going to sprinkle in some new guys. Who are some of the names? What are the faces that we should be really paying attention to here this season that you're really hoping to step forward and have big years for you?
Well, I'll start with the new guys since this last thing you brought up. But we have 4 new guys that we think could all contribute. Logan Ryan is a transfer from St. Leo, a good Division II school in Florida, comes from a really good league. He has really settled in nicely with what we do. Functions really well in our offense. Rashid Nikiema is a transfer from SUNY Purchase. He was a big-time Division III scorer. He's a guy that has a lot of potential. He's got to continue to work to become tougher and figure out our way of doing things, but we've seen a lot of progress with him. Kenny Scott is a freshman from Akron-Hoban area, had a lot of good high school success, comes from a great high school coach in TK Griffin. He is learning a lot, and it's a new system, and a freshman point guard, it's always hard. It could be harder because I'm his coach too, but he's figuring it out. And I think that Kenny's a guy that we expect to continue to get better and better. He's got as much confidence as he does IQ. So as much as you coach him hard, I still think he's going to stay confident, which is important. And the last newcomer is Caleb Conard, the guy that we had for 2 years at Malone. He's progressed and gotten better. was a part of some success on their team last year. He's a good defensive presence, brings us some defensive mobility at the 5 that we didn't have as much last year. And offensively, we still think he's a guy that you can put in certain areas of the floor, the block, the elbow, and he shoots the 3 a little bit. I think he'll function well with what we do.
And then, guys like Elijah Hinton and Trey, I can't remember Trey's last name right now. Terrence. Yeah. He led you point guard position. Then you've got other guys sprinkled in there. Brady Moore had a good season coming off the bench last year. I mean, you've got some guys that you can build this starting 5 around.
We do. We think that right now we have 11 guys that if we started this game right now, we feel like would play. I don't know if that's going to last.
Sure.
I don't know if we
because the rotations change throughout the course of the year, right?
Correct. And we want to figure out a way to get our best players on the floor longer, but Terrence is a guy who's been around for a long time. Brady Moore and Elijah the same way. Derek Goodman had a really good year for us as a freshman. I think that he's going to be a big factor for us. Carson Seaman and Zach Kimball have both been really good in practice. And we've seen a lot of progress from Kyler Kroll and Tony Izzano in the front court. Cam Cox is in the mix as well. It sounds like I'm offering up names just to make sure I cover it. But honestly, if you've been in practice every day, you feel like another guy standing up.
And as we know a couple of years ago, you need everybody because you never know when injuries are going to occur, what's going to happen throughout the course of the season. So to say we've got a core 8 guys and that's who I'm going to stay with, that's just not how it goes.
Correct. It's not. It's not. It'd be fortunate if it did, but at the same time, I think we have a lot of guys who are ready and eager to play.
Casey, the goals are always usually the same. Certainly you want to improve, you want to win your conference, you want to win the conference tournament, those types of things make the NCAA. But what is a successful season this year for you? And I know it can be a moving target, and I'm probably going to ask you again halfway through the season if that's where we are right now. What would be a successful year for you?
I think that we talk about one goal with our guys. It's get to the national tournament. We talk about failure being okay in the sense that if you have high goals, sometimes in the course of getting there, it's not perfect, but if you look at failure the right way, you get better from it. And we want to set a lot of small-term goals on the way to the end of the season. And when we don't reach that, we want to address it in the right way so we're seeing improvement. So, each week we're looking at things differently. We have 4 things on the board right now that our guys wrote down before we went to our retreat. And those are things we're going to revisit today in film to say, hey, look, how do we do with those things? Do we see ourselves get better at those things? Because I think that long-term goal is a long ways off. Having short-term stuff for our guys to look at is important in terms of how we improve. But generally speaking, when we leave the floor, we always want to feel like we were the tougher team and we were the more selfless group. So the type of decisions we make on the floor, that should be things that you see when you come watch us. Man, they're a selfless group. And physical toughness plays. Regardless of your size and athleticism, that's what we want to be known for.
It's funny, I just described a Casey Kaufman basketball team. You correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe not flashy, maybe don't do things that stand out, but work hard, kind of annoying. They're like that bug that just won't leave you or gets in the car and you can't get it out. But at the end of the day, your team has more points and the other team's like, how did we lose to those guys? Just because you kind of outwork them most of the time.
Yeah, we hope to be known for that. That's really what we want to be known for. We try to recruit a kid that resonates with that. You even go back to our first year here, Todd. Like, we haven't had the winning that we want to have yet, but I thought that group, they bought into that grit that you're talking about. And I think we got a group right now who's buying into it. We want to see some. Now we have the talent. I don't think we had the talent that first year. We want to see some results for that grit.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're certainly excited. Can't wait for the season to get going. I know you wish you had more time, but it's here. And if you go to OhioDominicanPanthers.com, go to the men's basketball schedule, you can check out when they're going to be playing. Casey Kaufman joining us here in today's Panther Spotlight. Thanks for joining us.